Forbidden love is so thrilling. Unlike you, Anna got pregnant right away. Really, an infertile wife is worthless. My husband's sister Anna says she's pregnant with his child. The two of them mock me proudly. I knew it. My bad feeling was right, and I couldn't hide my shock. When you said you were working late, were you with Anna? When I confronted him, he replied irritably. Yeah, so what? Is there any point in staying with a wife who can't have kids? Anna is cuter and more charming than you. Anyone would choose Anna over you. I blamed myself for not being able to have children. I never imagined his affair would be with his sister. I wanted to trust him until the end, but there's no point anymore. So, I took action. As I moved to uncover the truth, new facts came to light. I never expected this outcome. At that time, I had no way of knowing. My name is Natalie, and I'm 25 years old. After graduating college, I worked busily as an office worker, and I met Brendan by chance at a cafe during an outing. The quiet cafe where I could reflect was my favorite place. During breaks, I would visit the cafe where Brendan, always in a suit, would be. We both sat at the same counter seats and ordered the same coffee every time. I don't remember how it started, but Brendan, being naturally sociable, began talking to me. At first, our conversations were just small talk, but gradually, Brendan started sharing more about himself. Brendan, a year older than me, worked as an office worker. His parents divorced when he was a child, and he was taken in by his father. A few years later, his father remarried, and Brendan has been living with his stepmother and her child, Anna, ever since. It seemed like a complicated family situation, but Brendan didn't show any signs of that. In fact, he seemed to love his family very much. By the way, Anna said something the other day. Brendan often talked about his sister Anna with a delighted expression. She's not his biological sister, but they're quite close and she must be really cute. Having lost my parents in an accident and having no siblings, I envied Brendan's family environment. As we grew closer, we started spending weekends together and eventually began dating. Brendan wanted to introduce me to his family shortly after we started dating, so he invited me to his house. I was genuinely happy because it showed he was thinking about our future. Most of all, I was pleased that Brendan's parents were so kind to me. As someone who deeply yearned for family, Brendan's family was my ideal. However, there was one thing that felt slightly off: the closeness between Brendan and his sister Anna. Even in my presence, Anna clung to Brendan constantly. He told me they were close, but they're really close. I felt a mix of jealousy and discomfort, but having no siblings myself, I convinced myself that this might be normal. Our relationship continued smoothly, and we grew closer to each other's families. Honestly, there were times when I found Anna's presence bothersome. There were occasions when she would join us on our dates. Natalie, is it okay if Anna comes along today? I called her by chance, and she wants to join. Of course, I couldn't refuse. Brendan, without a hint of apology, frequently brought Anna along on our dates. Even in front of me, Anna clung to Brendan as if to show off. Though she was still a college student, she was over 20, and I wondered if such close proximity between siblings was normal. My frustration grew day by day. One day, I expressed my accumulated frustration to Brendan. Sensing my feelings from my attitude, he said, "I'm sorry for making you feel bad. But Anna is an important family member. She's shy and might be hard to understand, but she wants to get along with you, Natalie." Whenever we were together, Anna only had eyes for Brendan, making me feel invisible, so I doubted Brendan's words. "The only person I want to make happy is you, Natalie. I'll definitely make you happy. You're the most important to me." I believed Brendan's words, and at 23, I accepted his formal proposal and we got married. Brendan's parents were delighted to have me as part of their family. With no relatives of my own, I finally gained the family I had always dreamed of. Surrounded by loved ones, I was filled with happiness. Little did I know, this was the beginning of a tumultuous journey. At the time, I had no way of knowing. We rented an apartment near my in-laws and started our new life together. My in-laws continued to treat me well, cherishing me like their own daughter. I came to think of them as my real parents. 2 years into our marriage, we had talked about wanting children even before getting married, but we had not been able to conceive. People around us said, "You're still young, there's no need to rush, just let nature take its course." But after 2 years of trying, my husband and I couldn't hide our anxiety anymore. Brendan began to say harsh things to me out of frustration that we couldn't conceive. "What's going on? We've been trying for 2 years, and all my peers who got married around the same time are already fathers. I'm the one who's embarrassed at work." Blaming me for not being able to have a child, Brendan's words increasingly cornered me every month when I was disappointed yet again. When Brendan came home drunk, he became even more aggressive. "Everyone at the party asked again today if we had kids yet. You're really useless. Oh, I drew a dud for my wife. Are you defective or something? You tricked me well. This is like a marriage scam," he said, blaming me, and then fell asleep. Beside the drunken, sleeping Brendan, I cried silently. Even though I was troubled by not being able to have children, Brendan didn't support me as a husband. We were supposed to be a family after getting married, but I still felt utterly alone. At some point, I began to retreat into my shell. Being blamed by Brendan daily, I also began to blame myself. One day, sensing something was wrong, my mother-in-law visited me alone. She handed me some brochures for gynecologists and suggested I get checked out. It was a delicate issue, and my mother-in-law seemed hesitant to bring it up, but she couldn't stand to see me in distress. She was right, it might be better to get checked together to pinpoint the cause. With that in mind, I decided to talk to Brendan when he got home from work. "Hey, why don't we go to a gynecologist? I'd like you to come with me and get checked too." Brendan, lying down and fiddling with his phone, acted like he didn't hear me. He used to want kids so badly, but recently, we hadn't even been able to have a proper conversation about it. As I continued to push, Brendan snapped and shouted, "Shut up! It's your fault we can't have kids. Why should I go to the hospital? I'm busy with work, don't waste my time with this." Even Brendan wants kids, so why would he say something like that? I was shocked by his words but couldn't respond. I didn't want to fight about having children anymore. This incident caused a significant rift between us, and we stopped discussing children altogether. Brendan started coming home late, claiming he had to work overtime, and often returned in the early hours, saying he had business dinners or parties. Our conversations dwindled. But I became suspicious of Brendan's actions. When he claimed to be working late, he would come home smelling of a different soap. He must have been showering somewhere else. Sometimes, he came back reeking of women's perfume. Wanting to trust my husband until the end, I secretly checked Brendan's wallet. There, I found definitive proof of his infidelity: credit card statements, charges for luxury hotels, and expensive women's handbags. Of course, I had no knowledge of these purchases, and the dates matched the nights Brendan claimed to be working late. I knew it. My bad feeling was right. I couldn't hide my shock. Not only could I not conceive, but my husband had also found another woman. What should I do now? I thought I had achieved my dream of having a family, but it was far from the ideal I had envisioned. Was I going to be alone again? Was it my fault for not being able to have children? These negative thoughts kept looping in my mind. Then, suddenly, the faces of my mother-in-law and father-in-law came to mind. Although my relationship with Brendan wasn't going well, my relationship with my in-laws, Monica and Tom, was very good. They had become my closest confidants, with whom I could discuss anything. I can only talk about this with Mom and Dad. I decided to take the plunge and consult them about Brendan. I thought about calling them in advance, but I couldn't figure out what to say, so I decided to visit their house on a day off. Today is perfect since Brendan said he had to work and went to the office, so he won't find out I came here. Determined, I pressed the intercom at my in-laws' house, my heart pounding. I heard a familiar voice from inside. What? This voice, could it be? It was Brendan, who was supposed to be at work, coming out of the front door. Brendan? Why are you here? Weren't you at work? Why are you here? I just stopped by on my way from work. Brendan's answer was obviously nervous, his eyes darting around. I came to see Mom and Dad. It's quiet here. Are they out? Yeah. They left for a trip yesterday. A trip? Then why did you stop by? Just then, a woman's sweet voice called out from inside the house. Hey, what's taking so long? Let's eat, I'm starving. When the door opened, there stood Anna in revealing loungewear. Seeing her, Brendan couldn't hide his agitation either. I stared at Brendan, but he avoided my gaze, looking uncomfortable. Realizing the situation, Anna quickly tried to cover it up, saying, Natalie. Welcome. Brendan just got here too. Perfect timing. We were about to eat. Why don't you join us? Brendan and Anna were clearly flustered. In the heavy atmosphere, I couldn't just leave, so I waited alone in the living room while they prepared dinner. As much as I don't want to imagine it, is Anna the one Brendan is cheating with? As I entertained this worst-case scenario, I overheard Brendan and Anna whispering in the hallway. What the hell? Why is Natalie here? You didn't tell me. I didn't know either. How was I supposed to know she'd come here? Their voices grew louder with agitation. It seemed my suspicions were correct. Certain now, I opened the living room door and stepped into the hallway. Is my presence such a big deal? Brendan, realizing I had overheard their conversation, was at a loss for words, panicking. Unable to speak, he looked flustered, while Anna, determined, clung to Brendan's arm. It's just like you're thinking, Natalie. We're in that kind of relationship. Anna looked at me defiantly. Brendan doesn't need a wife who can't have kids for 2 years. He says I'm better. Anna smirked at me, like a child who had just gotten away with something. Seeing Anna reveal her true colors, Brendan sighed deeply, looking resigned. The familiar scent from Anna confirmed it was the same women's perfume I had smelled on Brendan's clothes. Come to think of it, Anna, despite being a college student, had a lot of branded bags. Even if she was working multiple part-time jobs, such purchases were too extravagant for a student. When you said you were working late, were you meeting Anna? When I confronted him, Brendan replied irritably, yeah, so what? Is there any point in staying with a wife who can't have kids? Anna's cuter and more charming than you. Anyone would choose Anna over you. Anna clung to Brendan's arm again, smiling triumphantly, as if to show off. Their outrageous behavior made me feel more anger than sadness. I couldn't find the words to respond and just stood there. For the next few days, I don't even remember how I spent my time. I could barely breathe, and just seeing Brendan's face made me nauseous. I wanted to get away from Brendan and Anna as soon as possible. So, I asked for a divorce. As expected, Brendan readily agreed. It was as if he had been waiting for me to bring it up. Afterward, I informed my in-laws of the situation. That's when they first learned about Brendan and Anna's relationship. My in-laws were furious over the phone. Monica, in shock, repeatedly apologized to me in a frail voice. Feeling guilty for causing them pain, I assured them that they were not at fault and expressed my gratitude for everything. Though divorced, I asked them to continue looking out for me, my last request, which they tearfully accepted. Brendan packed his things and left. He didn't apologize or show any remorse. Anna's apology felt insincere, and it seemed like she was mocking me. A few days later, I received the signed divorce papers. To reset everything, I moved to an apartment near my workplace after the divorce. Being alone made it easier to move. Although I was a bit farther from my in-laws, my relationship with them continued. My in-laws told me that Brendan and Anna were disowned and kicked out of the house. It's only natural, given the circumstances. My in-laws, having cut ties with their children, treated me even more kindly than before. I continued to visit them on my days off to prevent them from feeling lonely. We had developed a bond stronger than blood ties. This peaceful life continued for about 2 years until my mother-in-law suddenly fell ill. Though she was only in her 50s, the disease progressed rapidly. Before anyone could come to terms with it, she passed away. Both my father-in-law and I were unable to accept her sudden death. Soon after, my father-in-law's health deteriorated, likely due to the stress and grief. Having regretted not being able to do anything for my mother-in-law, I devoted myself to caring for my father-in-law. I couldn't bear the thought of losing him too. I don't even want to think about that, but the worst is on my mind. I did everything I could. He was in and out of the hospital for a while, but eventually, he started to recover and was able to live at home again. As his health stabilized, one day, while I was taking care of him as usual, the doorbell rang. When I answered the door, there stood the two people I never wanted to see again. Brendan and Anna. They didn't seem surprised to see me and walked into the house as if nothing had happened. It's been 2 years since I last came home. We didn't even attend Mom's funeral. It's been so long. This place brings back memories. This is where we first met. I was speechless at their attitude, as if nothing had happened. Despite her mother's death, Anna showed no signs of sadness. "So, I heard Dad's about to kick the bucket too?" Brendan said with a smirk, and I couldn't hide my anger. How could he say such a thing about his own father? It made me sick to think this person was my ex-husband. "I don't know who told you, but you two have nothing to do with this house anymore. Please leave." I tried to keep my emotions in check as I told them to leave. "What are you talking about? I'm the eldest son of this house. It's only natural for me to inherit the property, right? You're the one who doesn't belong here. Or are you after the inheritance too?" His words were so rude that I couldn't stop trembling with anger. It was obvious Brendan and Anna were here for the inheritance or insurance money. Their excitement was barely concealed. Thinking about my in-laws' feelings made me want to cry, but I held back my tears. "You should be nicer to a pregnant woman, you know. It's an important time for her," Brendan said, protectively covering Anna's belly. Looking closely, I could see her belly was slightly rounded. "That's right, be careful. It's my precious brother's baby after all." Anna smiled smugly. Anna's still a college student. "We'll get married after she graduates." I was surprised she got pregnant right away, unlike you. They looked at each other and laughed. "We're not blood related, but we're siblings. Isn't forbidden love thrilling? Stop it already." "Well, we're going to get married and be a real family. And unlike someone, we have a baby. An infertile wife is worthless." Their heartless words kept coming. Despite their attacks, I felt no damage from their words. I couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. "You two are just the same. Good for you, getting to be a couple after being siblings. Though I doubt you ever thought of each other as siblings. By the way, Anna, is the baby really Brendan's?" Both of them looked puzzled. Seeing they didn't understand, I pulled a document from my bag and showed it to them. It was a report from a private investigator detailing Anna's activities. The report included pictures of Anna holding hands and hugging other men. "Sorry, Anna. Before I divorced Brendan, I happened to see you at the cafe where we first met. I had you checked out." Brendan snatched the papers from me and read them, his face filled with disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded, glaring at Anna. "It's nothing. Don't believe this. They're just friends. They're from my college club." Anna tried to cover up, but her eyes darted nervously. In the tense silence, I delivered the final blow. "Sean, come here." I called, and a man holding a small child entered from the next room. "This is my husband, Sean. And this is our son. We conceived him right after getting married." "Wait. Don't lie just because you're bitter. You can't have kids, remember? Sean looked puzzled by Brendan's outburst. That's just what you assumed. After you, I went to see a gynecologist on my own. My tests showed I had no issues with fertility. Brendan, who had assumed the infertility was my fault, was visibly shocked. I didn't want to tell you this, but the reason we couldn't have kids was because of you, Brendan. Brendan turned pale. That's a lie. Anna is pregnant with my child. That proves it. Brendan shouted, but Anna also turned pale. Anna, whose child are you really carrying? Don't you get it? Anna used you. The investigation showed she's dating someone from her university. That guy is probably the father. To Anna, you were just a wallet to buy her expensive bags. When I finished speaking, Anna finally opened her mouth. That's right. Just as Natalie said. There were other men. But that has nothing to do with this. As Mom's biological daughter, I have the right to inherit her estate. And so does Brendan. Natalie, you're not family, you have nothing to do with this anymore. Anna's voice trembled with anger as she shouted, acting as if she had done nothing wrong. But Anna, I'm sorry, even as her biological daughter, you can't inherit anything. After I told them that, my father-in-law quietly emerged from the back of the room. Dad? Apparently, they had assumed he was hospitalized due to his poor health. Seeing him appear so suddenly, they looked as if they had seen a ghost and nearly collapsed. I've been listening from the start. My father-in-law began to speak calmly. I've already cut ties with you too. And the inheritance has already been transferred while I was still alive. We decided to leave everything to Natalie, who has taken care of us tirelessly like a true daughter. There is nothing left for either of you. Furthermore, he explained that when he married my mother-in-law, he had never legally adopted Anna. In other words, they would receive nothing from the inheritance. If you understand, get out. Don't ever come back. My father-in-law's anger was palpable as he shouted at them. But we already spent so much money thinking we'd get the inheritance. What are we supposed to do now? Anna muttered quietly, tears welling in her eyes. Brendan, overwhelmed by shock, looked like an empty shell. The energy they had when they barged in was completely gone as they silently left with slumped shoulders. After that, neither of them ever appeared before our family again. I heard through the grapevine that the baby Anna was carrying turned out not to be Brendan's, and Brendan, shocked, abandoned Anna and the baby. No one knows Brendan's whereabouts. He quit his job and moved away without a trace, according to his former colleagues. As for Anna, left by Brendan, she had to drop out of college, and her boyfriend also left her, leaving her as a single mother. With no one to turn to, she struggled to raise her child alone, turning to alcohol and gambling out of stress, leading a rough life. To avoid the regret I felt with my mother-in-law, I moved in with my father-in-law along with my husband and son to continue caring for him. My father-in-law doted on my son, and my son adored him, calling him Grandpa with so much love. The smiles that had faded from my father-in-law's face since my mother-in-law passed away returned once more. A few months later, my father-in-law quietly passed away in the home he loved. His final moments were peaceful, with a gentle expression on his face. We continue to live in his house. In our living room, along with photos of our family of 3, are pictures of my father-in-law and mother-in-law. All right, let's say hello to Grandpa and Grandma. I say, and my son places his hands together in front of their pictures, greeting them. True to their promise, my in-laws continue to watch over us warmly.